17. You will notice that, and I'll explain it in a minute here, but you will notice that tonight there will be a really good portion of chapters that we skip, and that is just because of the, once again, the type of study that we are doing. So if you remember, last week is when we started looking at Moses and the way that God used him after the Israelites left Egypt. First, we looked at how God sent them on what, in our minds, would be sent them in the most foolish direction, and that was sent them into a dead end, into a corner. But of course, that was because God was going to show his power, as well as use that as a way to take out Pharaoh's army. That way that, because otherwise, even if he had let them down there and had Moses reach the staff out over the water and it part, they crossed over on dry ground, and the water came in before the Egyptians got to the sea, then all that would do was just slow the Egyptians down. They would be able to still go up go up north, and then be able to cross over and come back down and get the Israelites. And that's why, so to protect his people, to be able to protect the Israelites, God took out a mass majority of Pharaoh's army, to where that he did not have an army left to be able to send after them. I'm sure that he had, of course, his personal guards still, but beyond that, his army was obliterated. And then, so one other thing that we saw, and if you remember, I used this term quite a bit last week, in the sense of the Israelites were really good at whining. They took it to, and we will see that more again tonight. So, God gives them protection. God saves them from the Israelites, from the Egyptians, and they start traveling. And the first thing they whine about is they're thirsty. They come upon water, but guess what? The water is not suitable to drink. So God uses Moses as his tool to take a certain tree branch, which, here's a miracle, because it's impossible. You can't just take a tree branch, put it into nasty, stagnant water, and then you have beautiful, purified water. It doesn't work that way, unless if God is involved. And so, anyways, that is what happened. Now Moses took that certain tree branch that God said, put it in the water, and the water became pure and clean. So, the Israelites now have been saved from bondage. Their thirst is quenched. Now they're hungry. Now they're whining because their food provisions that they had brought with them out of Egypt have dwindled away. They are hungry, and they whine about that. And when I say whining, it takes it to another level. You see no faith. You don't see them looking to God for help. Okay, you don't see them praying, asking God to provide. They just go each time, whine and complain and say how much better off they'd be if they had stayed in Egypt, and they whine and complain to Moses. So now they are hungry. So God, here we go, another miracle. Because the only time I have ever seen food coming out of the sky is thanks to Hollywood and their kids movies, Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs. And well, this is the first instance of that, except it wasn't. And we'll see it. We might see it tonight, later on in their journey. But anyways, in this part that we saw last week, God provides manna. When the dew comes down on the ground, manna is provided. Manna was essentially kind of like a bread. It was, as you can see later on, it wasn't necessarily the smooth, soft bread we have now. It was a little bit more coarse, a little bit more granular, very plain, but even still, it was food. And however, one of the instructions, and this is taking it even a step further and showing how God really was in control or is in control, and how God was the one providing it, is that not only did that come almost every morning, okay? They had to get fresh. They had to get fresh every day. They're only to collect what they'd eat because it would only last 24 hours before it would be rotten. Except, magically, as this world would say, the manna that fell on the 6th day, they were to gather 2 days' worth, and that would last, and it would not go bad. It would last for 48 hours, and that was to be able to observe the Sabbath, because going out and collecting manna would have been considered work, okay, which of course they were not to do. So we see obviously God's hands there, God's hand in that, His power in that. That's stuff that normally only lasted 24 hours. On those certain days would last 48 hours. And so now their food, their quench has been, the thirst has been quenched. Their tummies don't have the rumblies anymore. They're good, right? No, the manna made them thirsty again. So then that's the last thing we looked at last week, is God had Moses strike a rock. They were in a place where there was no water source, okay? Before, even though it was bad water, there was a water source. Here, in the wilderness they are in, there is no water source whatsoever. So what's God going to do? He's going to show His ultimate power again. He has Moses take his staff, go up, hit a rock, strike a rock. And that rock splits open. That rock pours out water. Now, one thing I want to remind you, or if you were not here last week, tell you, is that this rock, even though it was a very large rock, even if it was totally hollow, would not have provided enough water for the whole Israelite nation and their livestock and everything. So that being the case, you just have this rock that is split open. It would have been a very powerful stream, almost a river, coming through it, consistent enough for the whole Israelite nation, men, women, children, all their livestock to have gotten watered, as well as being able to fill any jugs, canteens, all those sort of things, to be able to store water and have water to continue on. Okay, so it was an impossible amount of water to come out of that rock, no matter how big it was. It was impossible for that amount of water to come out of it. And that is where we are picking up tonight. Now, the Israelite nation, it was not just, as we will see, it was not just hunger and thirst that they were dealing with. We are going to pick it up, Exodus chapter 17, and verse 8. Then came Amalek and fought with Israel in Rephidim. Anybody know who Amalek is? Well, I mean, a little bit.
A group of.
I was going to say,
I can't remember what.
the grandson of Esau. Yep. Grandson of Esau. Then came Amalek and fought with Israel in Rephidim. And Moses said unto Joshua, choose us out men and go out, fight with Amalek. Tomorrow I will stand on the top of the hill with the rod of God in my hand. So Joshua did as Moses had said to him and fought with Amalek. And Moses, Aaron, and Hur went up to the top of the hill. And it came to pass when Moses held up his hand that Israel prevailed. And when he let down his hand, Amalek prevailed. But Moses' hands were heavy, and they took a stone and put it under him, and he sat thereon. And Aaron and Hur stayed up his hands, the one on the one side and the other on the other side. And his hands were steady until the going down of the sun. And Joshua discomfited Amalek and his people with the edge of the sword. And the Lord said to Moses, write this for memorial in a book, and rehearse it in the ears of Joshua. For I will utterly put out the remembrance of Amalek from under heaven. And Moses built an altar and called the name of it Jehovah Nissa. For he said, because the Lord hath sworn that the Lord will have war with Amalek from generation to generation. So, how did God use Moses as a tool here? So the Israelite nation is now threatened with war. Amalek has come out and decided that apparently he's going to somehow become a better warrior by trying to take out a wandering nation. I mean, it's not like they're carrying, it's not like they have a big palace. There's livestock, but I mean, in general, I mean, what's really to come of it in that sense? But anyway, so he comes against them. Moses has Joshua go and get a bunch of people. And if you remember, back when we were going through going through all the children of Jacob, we saw the different blessings and stuff, and even when we looked at the Moses blessing for each of them. But anyways, we also looked at the census that Moses had taken. And in the census he took did not give women and children, but it was of the numbers that were given were of military age men. And they were, so what the Israelite nation had was a pretty good, pretty large number of men who were of that age. Now, that doesn't mean all of them were necessarily would be sent out, but even still, they had a good number. However, it was not just a war in this sense. They weren't just to go out and fight. Moses wasn't just staying back with everyone, and he wasn't just hiding up on a hillside, up on top of a hill, trying to keep himself protected, since you could call him the leader of the Israelite nation. That was not the case. He was doing something. No, he was not directly risking his life, as in he wasn't down in the war. But I won't do it with you guys tonight. But one thing that whenever I have seen this taught to children, or I have taught it a couple times myself with kids, I will give them all something to hold. Something very, that would normally be considered lightweight. Say like a bottle of water or something, okay? That's lightweight, right? Take it and hold it out like this. Oh, even the first minute isn't bad. I go on teaching. No, you keep that bottle of water up there. Eventually, you start to see bottle going down. No, get it out there. And it turns into, that bottle of water feels like a 50-pound bag of grain. I mean, it's just, it'll take everything, even a really strong, you could get a serious bodybuilder. I mean, he pumps iron all the time. Oh, yeah, he can last holding that bottle of water a lot longer than a child could. However, eventually, that big muscle-bound guy will get to be where he just can't hold up his arm in that bottle of water any longer. Well, it turns out the one task that Moses had was holding his staff up. Now think about it. Even if it was just for one day, that staff is going to get heavy way before the day is even half done. Okay? And that is what we see. You have Aaron and Hur went up with Moses on top of this hill, which was a very good idea for the Israelite nation. Because eventually you got to be where that, first of all, Moses is not a young guy anymore, even at this point. So after a while of standing, he just can't stand there anymore. He just can't stand. So they move Aaron and Hur move a stone to him, so that way he's at least able to sit. Take a little bit of a load off of his feet, since he's not able to physically stand anymore. But then it got to be where that he just couldn't hold the staff up. Anytime that staff would start to sag, Amalek and his army would start to overtake the Israelites. Okay, meaning more of the Israelite men would have been dying at this point. Okay, but then if he held it back up, he would go and see this happen and go, oh, just strain to lift it back up again. Israelites will all of a sudden start overpowering Amalek again. And then what we see is, and there's really good sermon you can get out of this, but we won't go there tonight, is how Aaron and Hur held up. Now notice, they don't take the staff from him and say, my turn, I will hold it for you. That's not the point. That was Moses' job. They held up Moses' arm. They did not hold up the staff. They helped him by holding up his arm. And the Israelite nation succeeded and won in that battle, in that war against Amalek. Now, Exodus chapters 18 all the way through 32 there's a lot of instruction that is given in there. God giving instruction to Moses, and then Moses giving it to the Israelite nation about how they should live, about how they should build a tabernacle. All right down to the nitty and gritty of everything. We're not going to look at all of that because a lot of it is just, it's just God using Moses as we'll call him the middleman, just as a messenger. He would just take the information to the Israelites, okay? However, there are a couple things that I do want to bring out in that text. One of which is both of them, I should say, are quite well known. But let's go to Exodus chapter 20. Exodus chapter 20, and what we are seeing is here are the 10 Commandments. Okay, and one of the reasons why I pulled this one out is because of the fact that really the majority of these are still pertinent today for us. Okay, so we'll begin reading right in verse 1 of chapter 20. And God spake all these words, saying, I am the Lord thy God, which have brought thee out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. Thou shalt have no other gods before me. Thou shalt not make unto thee any graven image, or any likeness of anything that is in the heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the water under the earth. Thou shalt not bow down thyself to them, nor serve them, for I am the Lord thy God, am a jealous God, visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children, unto the third and fourth generation of them that hate me, and showing mercy unto thousands of them that love me, and keep my commandments. Thou shalt not take the name of the Lord thy God in vain, for the Lord will not hold him guiltless that taketh his name in vain. Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. 6 days shalt thou labor and do all thy work, but the seventh day is the Sabbath of the Lord thy God. In it thou shalt not do any work, thou, nor thy son, nor thy daughter, thy manservant, nor thy maidservant, nor thy cattle, nor thy stranger that is within thy gates. For in 6 days the Lord made heaven and earth, the sea, and all that in them is, and rested the seventh day. Wherefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day, and hallowed it. Honor thy father and thy mother, that thy days may be long upon the land which the Lord thy God giveth thee. Thou shalt not kill. Thou shalt not commit adultery. Thou shalt not steal. Thou shalt not bear false witness against thy neighbor. Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's house. Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife, nor his manservant, nor his maidservant, nor his ox, nor his ass, nor anything that is thy neighbor's. So what we are seeing here, so Moses is not down with the Israelite nation at this point. Okay, he is he is up on a mountain. He is in God's presence. He is communing with God. And we will see if we have time tonight. If not, it'll be actually 3 weeks from now. Because I'm not here next week. The following week is we're out there. We're outside. So that'll be something different. So anyways, we will see eventually at least that we know that even though he was in God's presence, he could not actually see God, okay? And we will show that to you at some point here. But anyways, he is up on the mountaintop, and he has been up there for a little bit of time. We don't know exactly how long, but long enough to make the Israelites miss him. Let's put it that way, okay? And the Israelites, in the process of all of this, decide that it's apparently they decide it's a great time to pressure Aaron into taking their gold jewelry and all of that to make them something to worship. Okay, and of course made a golden bowl. And that's what they were worshiping when Moses came down from on top of the mountain. Now, however, let's go ahead, because the next, like I said, next quite a bit of chapters here is a lot more instruction that's not part of our study that we're doing right now. So let's go to chapter 31 real quick. We're only going to show one verse here. So, anyways, so even with this verse that I'm going to pull out here and show you, all these other chapters, Moses is still up there, okay, with God. He has not come down and presented the commandments. He has not come down to find them dancing around and worshiping this golden image that they have made. Verse 18 of chapter 31, Exodus 31:18. And he gave unto Moses, meaning God, when he had made an end of communing with him upon Mount Sinai, 2 tables of testimony, tables of stone, written with the finger of God. These tables of stone, these stone tablets, were not something, at this point, that Moses had gone and scratched in and written this stuff. Okay? What was etched there was literally written by the hand of God. These were presented to Moses to be able to take down to the Israelite nation. And it's after this that he goes down to the Israelite nation and goes to present it to them. It's doing what he's supposed to be doing and everything. And then let's go right to the next chapter. Chapter 32. We're going to pick it up in verse 15. Chapter 32, verse 15. And Moses turned and went down from the mount, and the 2 tables of the testimony were in his hand. The tables are written on both their sides. On the one side and on the other were they written. And the tables were the work of God, and the writing was the writing of God graven upon the tables. And when Joshua heard the noise of the people as they shouted, he said unto Moses, There is a noise of war in the camp. And he said, It is not the voice of them that shout for mastery, Neither is it the voice of them that cry for being overcome, but the noise of them that sing do I hear. And it came to pass, as soon as he came nigh into the camp, that he saw the calf and the dancing, and Moses' anger waxed hot, and he cast the tables out of his hands, and brake them beneath the mount. And he took the calf which they had made, and burnt it in the fire, ground it to powder, and strawed it upon the water, and made the children of Israel drink of it. So he comes down. So obviously, now Moses was alone with God on top of the mountain. However, we're not talking about, most likely, we're not talking a simple little jaunt, okay? Joshua had joined him part of the way up. And then Joshua waited there until Moses came back down from communing with God. So Moses, on his way back down, meets up with Joshua. And as they're coming down, Joshua's just like, it almost sounds like war. Now, so many people have, so many churches have tried to use different types of genres of music, say, oh, well, this is what it sounded like, yada, yada, yada. Well, the reason why it sounded at first like war was not just simply because of certain instruments that they heard. It was not because of the words themselves that were being sung. It would have been, the reason why it would have been confused would have been because it would have been in a chant sort of form. One that, say, you might hear like with natives and that, and the different chants, and the certain exact beat and tempo, everything put together it was a deafening, because you're not talking about, 50 people, 100 people. What you're talking about is the Israelite nation, okay? Hundreds of thousands, okay, of people are dancing around and doing this chant. So at first, it's so loud and deafening, it's war, it's got to be war, and then it comes to, wait a second, as they get closer, it's like, no, there's something else going on here. It's not war, can't figure out what exactly it is. And so what happens is, as soon as they get down and they see what happens, well, Moses loses his temper. He takes those, now did he purposefully say, I want to break these tablets of stone? No, it's what he had in his hands. He was just so mad, just threw them down, smashed them. Those tablets of stone that God himself had inscribed on with his finger, Moses smashed them on the ground. And many times, with the teaching of this account, that is kind of like to a point, okay, that is where the teaching ends. They don't include that last verse that we read. So it was actually even a learning experience for me. It wasn't just that he went and destroyed that golden calf, okay? He burned it down into a dust, mixed it into water, and made the Israelite nation then consume it. It was, that's multi-part. We're not getting into that tonight. But part of it was so that way there's no possibility of it existing again. Okay? And so that's another time. This is another big time we're seeing here with Moses being used as a tool. And even though this was messenger as well, it went beyond it, with what he had to do here. Now, through all of this, we have seen Moses, we have seen him obey a lot more. He's definitely as what we would say, a different Moses now compared to when God originally appeared to him in the bush in the burning bush and said, you're going to go and go before Pharaoh. Remember, he used every single excuse in the book trying to get out of it, to the point where God finally gave in. You can say, God gave in and say, okay, fine. You know what? Fine. Your brother Aaron can go and speak for you, but you're still doing the work. Aaron will do the speaking, okay? He's come a long ways in his walk with God. He is actually communing with God in the presence of God when he goes away on these times, up on top of the mountain. And so another thing I want to show, being it's on that we're looking at, is the person of Moses. Chapter 33. Exodus chapter 33. Is this, what I'm showing tonight with this one, is not how God used him. We're going to look at Moses' prayer. Now, one thing I want to point out before we even read it, though, quite so often, now, how you pray is, I want to say first of all, is between you and God, Some people can speak eloquently, and can, that sort of thing, just pray very eloquently and pray on and on. And then you have other people who aren't as eloquent in speech, and it's more of a simple prayer. Moses, if you remember, was raised right from a baby, was raised in a palace. He had the ability originally to speak eloquently. It would have been in his upbringing, in his training. But then, after his sin of killing the Egyptian, he went into hid in the wilderness for 40 years as a shepherd. If you remember shepherds, even at this time, even at this early on in history, they were still looked down upon. They were still on the very low side of the totem pole, you can say. Okay, so 40 years he was in the wilderness doing this before he ever went before other people, necessarily outside of his own family. Okay, and in this time is when I believe that he had developed whatever speech impediment it was that he tried using as an excuse to not be able to serve God and let God use him at first. But anyways, you see that come out here in his prayer, in the sense of, it's not some eloquent prayer that's 2-3 chapters long. It's very simple. It's very to the point. But we see the fact God answers his prayer. God answers him. So let's see. We're going to start reading in verse 12. And Moses said unto the Lord, See, thou sayest unto me, Bring up this people, and thou hast not let me know whom thou wilt send with me. Yet thou hast said, I know thee by name, and thou hast also found grace in my sight. Now therefore, I pray thee, if I have found grace in thy sight, show me now thy way, that I may know thee, that I might find grace in thy sight, and consider that this nation is thy people. So what we see in this first little portion of his prayer is Moses saying, look, you have told all this to me, God. You know me. You know me by name. You know these people. But you want me, okay, I'm going to give you sort of the Nate, we'll call it the Nate Crane version, okay? He's saying, you put me here as a leader, God. A leader is supposed to, in a leadership position, a leader is supposed to lead. But I don't know what's going on. I don't know where the end result necessarily is. I don't know how to do this. What do you want me to do? What's the end goal? What's the result? Now, does God truly answer his questions? Or in the way that Moses wants answers? No. But he still gets an answer. So for this first portion, God's answer is verse 14. And he said, My presence shall go with thee, and I will give thee rest. What is God saying there? I mean, the first half of it is easy. Oh yeah, God's saying he's going to go with him. Okay, God's going to take care of him. I will give thee rest. Does that mean that Moses gets to have a nap every afternoon? No, that's not what that means. It is that rest that you get, meaning a peace of mind, that peace in your soul that God is taking care of you. You don't have to worry about, as we sing, don't have to worry about tomorrow. Okay? God, it's in God's hands. God's saying, I will take care of you. You don't have any need to, don't worry about it. I will be with you. I will lead you. I will show you where to go when the time is right. Verse 15, Moses, he said unto him, If thy presence go not with me, carry us not up hence. For wherein shall it be known here that I and thy people have found grace in thy sight? Is it not in that thou goest with us? So shall we be separated, I and thy people, from all the people that are upon the face of the earth. Moses is saying, look, this is great. This is awesome, Lord, that you're going with us. If, for any reason, you're not going to go with us, essentially what Moses is saying is, take us home. If not, be with us. Set us apart as a people. And I do want to point out really quick, setting apart as a people does not mean that Moses is saying, please put us somewhere where we never have to worry about war. We never have to worry about this. We never have to worry about that. Totally protect us. He is saying, set us apart. Teach us. Let us be seen as different. Let us be seen as ones that follow you. You know, it's just as we are to be as Christians, being set apart from the world. Verse 17, and the Lord said to Moses, I will do this thing also that thou hast spoken, for thou hast found grace in my sight, and I know thee by name. Quite simply, God says to this one, Moses gets the answer that he wanted for this one. God says, yes, I will do this one for you, Moses. Absolutely. I will be with you. I will set your people, I will set the Israelite nation apart. And then, just showing the faith and how much Moses has grown spiritually, we really see that in verse 18. Does Moses then pray to God and ask God to give him more power, to look like a more powerful leader, to be able to lead better? No, he says in verse 18, I beseech thee, or I beg thee, I plead of thee, God, show me thy glory. And this is where I mentioned before, so I wasn't sure if we'd get to it. Now, verse 19 is where God answers. He said, I will make all my goodness pass before thee, and I will proclaim the name of the Lord before thee, and will be gracious to whom I will be gracious, and will show mercy on whom I will show mercy. And he said, Thou canst not see my face, for there shall no man see me and live. And the Lord said, Behold, there is a place by me, and thou shalt stand upon a rock. And it shall come to pass, while my glory passeth by, that I will put thee in a cleft of the rock, and will cover thee with my hand while I pass by. And I'll take away mine hand, and thou shalt see my back parts, but my face shall not be seen. God says, you know what, Moses? As best of what I can do for you. Now, God could have shown his face to Moses. I don't want to say that God didn't have the power to. Yeah, he could have. However, that would have meant, as it said, if you see God's face, you can't live. That would have ended Moses' life. God would not have been able to keep using him to lead the Israelite nation. So that's what I mean when I say God could not let Moses see all of his glory. But at this point, God says, Moses, you have done everything that I have told you to do up to this point. We've grown so much closer. And in the sense of God's just, I will reward you. I will show you as much of me as is possible, you being a human, you being a sinner. Okay? He said, there's a rock right here by me. You will stand there. And as I pass by in front of you, there is a cleft of the rock that you will be in. So an indent, sort of maybe a crack in the rock or something. There's a cleft in the rock. You'll be hidden in. As I pass by, I will put my hand there to block. So that way you won't even accidentally see my face. So this is still God's protection over Moses. Okay? This is not only for God's own work to be able to continue, but it's also for Moses' own good in that sense. I will protect you. Once I am past to where that you won't be able to see my face, then you can look. The best of what I can do for you to be able to see me, is you can see the back of my head, okay? That is what you will be able to see. You'll be able to see that glory. And I mean, what an incredible thing when you look at, like I said, Moses' simple prayer. Not some big, long, eloquent thing. Just real simple, to the point of all the things he could have asked for. What did he ask for? He just said, God, show me thy glory. Show me yourself. I mean, that really should be our prayer too, now in our own personal prayer lives. Show me yourself, God. You know, maybe not necessarily in the sense of, I want to visually see you, God, okay? Show yourself in my life. I don't want there to ever be a time where I'm, for whatever reason, questioning whether you are still there for me. God, I want you to be there ever present, all the time in my life. Help me to just never take my eyes off of you, God. That should really be part of our own prayer as well. So let's see, actually, we'll do one more real quick. We're out of time, but this will be really quick. So chapter 34, Exodus chapter 34, just be reading the first 4 verses. And the Lord said to Moses, hew thee 2 tables of stone like unto the first, and I will write upon these tables the words that were in the first tables, which thou breakest. And be ready in the morning, come up in the morning unto Mount Sinai, present thyself there to me in the top of the mount. And no man shall come up with thee, neither let any man be seen throughout all the mount, neither let the flocks nor herds feed before that mount. And he hewed 2 tables of stone like unto the first. And Moses rose up early in the morning, and went unto Mount Sinai, as the Lord had commanded him, and took in his hand the 2 tables of stone. So what we are seeing here, and I will just give you a quick rundown of it, is when Moses threw down those tables of stone, it did not just break them in half. If it broke them in half, they'd still be readable. They'd still be usable. No, when he threw them down, they shattered, okay? They were totally ruined. They were not readable. There was no way to put them back together in that sort of sense, okay? So now we are seeing, you could say, his punishment. Moses' punishment. Remember, originally, Moses had to do no work at all for that first set of tablets of the 10 Commandments. Why? Because God wrote it with his finger. Now, Moses has to go and find 2 tablets of stone, and he has to himself chisel into it. That's what it means to hew in this case. He'd be chiseling into the stone and writing the 10 Commandments down just as God had. But he had to do it himself. I mean, how many times as parents have we done that with kids? Well, I did this for you the first time. You messed it up. Now you got to do it. I mean, I know Cassie and I actually do that quite often with things, and I know my mom did it with me. So I'm sure it's I'm sure it's that way with pretty much all parents, but what's up?
And the Lord said to Moses, cut 2 tablets of stone like the first ones, and I will write on these tablets the words that were on the first tablets which you broke. God said he was going to write it. Verse 1, chapter 34.
You know what? You're right, Addie. You know, the way, and see, this is where it comes into play, that you have to be careful when it comes to what other people have taught you. Because even though, yes, I read that verse, you know, I had it put, I was going to say, I didn't catch on to it because I've been taught my whole life that Moses had to chisel out himself. Now, in this case, he had to chisel out and get the stone, but yes, thank you for bringing that out, Addie. He did not have to chisel the commandments. God wrote them again. However, he had to get the rocks, and I guess you could say the punishment in this sense was he had to get them presentable and ready for God. He had to, you notice too in it,
just hewing them out, getting them out of the rock was a lot of work.
yes, and then he would have had to have carry them up the mountain. And you notice it says no one is even allowed to get near the mountain. Before, Joshua went and had gone at least part way up the mountain with Moses, because when Moses came down, he met him. In this case, no. He had to go up that mountain by himself. He had to carry those tablets up by himself. And, but yes, thank you very much, Addie. That is...
I have to reread everything myself constantly to make sure that I...
And this is a good, this is very good, I mean, example that I've even warned others, warned you guys about before, and yet it happened to me here, in the sense of, yeah, exactly, it's sort of autopilot. Oh, I know this account. I have been taught this my whole life. Just because I've been taught it my whole life does not mean that it's correct. So yes, thank you very much, Addie. So, so let me make that correction. He had to hew the stones in the sense of getting them prepared. He had to carry them up to the top of the mountain. And God then did rewrite into, which makes sense though, you know, when you think about it, because where did those 10 Commandments, those tablets end up? In the Ark of the Covenant. If it was just something that Moses had chiseled into himself, you know, chiseled them into, it would have been all just man. It would have been nothing holy about it other than the words originally came from God.
He wouldn't have been able to put it to the Ark because the Lord wouldn't allow it.
Exactly. So it makes total sense, though, knowing that those tablets will end up in the Ark of the Covenant, that it makes sense that it had to be that God wrote it. But even still, he still did get a slap on the hand, a little bit of a punishment for not controlling his temper.
We all need that.
Yes, we do. Anyways, that is where we are going to end tonight, and this really does end when we come with talking about Moses and how God used him, and looking at Moses as a person. This does end the book of Exodus. So the next time we are together in this setting with this study, there is one very special account in Leviticus that we will look at, and then we move on into the book of Numbers. Yes, Numbers does have more than just counting and numbers in it. Even though it has a lot of that, it does have more. Heavenly Father, Lord, thank you so much for your word. And Lord, I thank you, Lord, how that you continually allow us and help us to learn. Lord, sometimes, just as it happened just now tonight, Lord, it's just how we can sometimes be taught something our whole lives, and because of that, Lord, we can miss something very important. Lord, I thank you for tonight, just as we are looking at the ways that you used Moses as your tool. Lord, I thank you that tonight you used Addie as your tool, Lord, to show this way that what could be a simple little thing, Lord, but has much more major meaning behind it. Thank you for allowing her to, using her to show where I was taught wrong, Lord. Lord, I thank you for this. That way there was